also.
Oh my god, I didn't know. I hit live and we're already live.
Hi, everyone.
I thought I
Hi.
could swap it. Oh, oops. Drunk finger. Drunk finger.
The fun things of doing things live. That's cool.
Well, hi everybody. Welcome to Queers and Soaps. I'm Tommy, and as always, I'm joined by Her Highness, Miss Erin Wallace.
Hello.
She's thirsty today.
I am very thirsty. Come here,
And
John.
today
No.
we're joined by our friend Eric, who you might remember from our season 1 recap. So welcome, Eric.
Thank you.
And as always, Lynn is with us, our resident Knots historian.
Oh, I was about to
Greetings,
say that.
everyone.
You were about to say what?
Noxus. Yeah,
Not the historian.
that's it.
I got to get
All
on
right,
that
well,
level.
we are in season 5. I'm so excited. A lot to talk about. So let's roll the credits and we will jump right into it. I guess it played. It never even popped up on my screen.
Oh, it played.
It did.
That's weird. All right. Let me get my notes up because I got plenty of them.
I didn't take any as usual.
There was a lot that happened. I took way too
There
many
was a lot.
too.
Me too.
All right. So
I did
episode
take it.
1 of season 5 is called The People versus Gary Ewing. This is actually the episode that I took the least amount of notes on because it kind of felt like a transitional episode. We were kind of wrapping up things that happened in season 4 and kind of going forward with some things and kind of laying the groundwork for other things. First things first, new theme song. Love it.
I think this is probably your favorite one, Tommy.
Oh, it is. I love
Season
like
5.
the grand. Yes, this is my favorite.
I don't think
Aaron
I
actually
watched it.
texted me. He's like, "Well, we can't."
I
keep
don't
that
get right
anymore."
in. I think it take me right into the do.
Do.
It has a little extra like. I'm like, no, stop.
It's dramatic.
It's very dramatic.
It's comedic.
It's a soap opera.
Exactly.
I don't like it. Take me back to season 4.
Oh, look at him.
Well,
The CG season.
well, get used to it because it's gonna be around for a while.
I know. I heard that.
So we're still dealing with the trial versus Gary, because he admitted to killing CG, even though he didn't do it. Lynn, what do you have? Because I have very few notes on this episode.
I've got quite a bit. Like,
Me too.
one of the big things that stood out in this episode for me was for just this one, they had to recast Jim Westmont. So his character was still there, but it was played by someone else. And then they got the old actor back from the previous season. I don't know what the issue was there, but it was kind of funny.
Was that Abby's little henchman?
That's Abby's
His
henchman.
lawyer.
And she tried to fire Gary's lawyer that was really good at what he did because she
That
wanted Jim.
confused the fuck out of me because I was like, you look different,
Exactly.
but not enough for me to care. And then he came back.
Oh,
and
see,
I'm like,
I thought it was the same guy.
I didn't notice either.
I just thought I was like, you look weird now.
Yeah.
Something happened.
Right.
You look really
Oh,
just.
see, I thought it was the same guy the whole time.
No, and he is the regular the first actor is back on all the rest of the episodes we'll talk about yet today, but that first one they had a recast for whatever reason.
They did that with the actor that was Laura's boss at the real estate place.
Uh-huh.
They had like one actor, they recasted him, and then they brought the original back also. I remember seeing that.
You guys are good. I didn't catch that.
Well, that one's really noticeable.
I liked how when Abby was going to the hearing at the courthouse, the reporters were all on her, so Val pulls up and she's able to sneak in and get around the press when she goes in at least.
Yes.
So, the big cabuttal was Gary's lawyer was supposedly fired, but not. And Abby and Gary are having it out right there in the courtroom. And the judge is like banging his gavel and saying, everybody in my chambers right now. And he's not standing for it. And, you know, Val's suspicions are really heightened around Gary. She's asking Mac, can she, you know, hire a defense for him practically and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, Val's going deep right away with Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the judge requests to speak to all of the attorneys and Gary in his chambers.
Right.
And I like how Abby tries to walk in there like she belongs in there, and they're like, no. She's not like.
even Gary's like kind of pissed off at her right away. And now Gary's starting to sober up because he's had time to detox and stuff like that. So he's catching wind of her viperness, if you will. So he too is a little bit suspicious.
But he still kind of likes that about her.
Right.
Yeah.
But then since they didn't have the hearing and the judge pulled them in, they kind of everybody got to spar or leave the courthouse, and that's when the reporters see Val, and they're really coming after her. And surprisingly, now we're getting our introduction, especially for you, Aaron, to Ben for the first time, who helps Val escape out of the back way.
Which is my second line of notes. It says we meet Ben, and oh my god, I love Ben. I love him so much.
I love Ben too.
I think the actor had just come off of General Hospital.
Yes,
and then
he did.
transitioned and came on Knots Landing. Yep.
He left GH in December of 1982.
Okay.
And then
he was on Knots in the fall of 83.
83.
Yeah.
Well, I found out from IMDbing him that he was Cher's father on the Clueless sitcom.
Oh.
That's where I know him.
Yeah.
I had to find something that Aaron could relate him to.
There you
I
go.
love that show.
I forgot about that. That should stream somewhere. That show.
Right?
That's funny.
The next note I have, and then you guys can cut me off if I'm jumping too far ahead, is that Karen flips out on Laura because defending Richard. Because she's like, you have to find Richard. He's the one. He's the one that killed TJ.
Yeah.
It's not Gary.
I love that.
Karen's so upset that Diana is gone that she is like, she's unraveling pretty quickly. And
I'm sorry, Karen. Let her go.
Not yet.
Cut that child off.
You have 3 kids. Let's just call that one a wash.
let's put it this way. Just so you know, Eric, now that Richard's off the show, Diana's going to be Aaron's next one, and he's going to go after
It's
her.
like Richard, Diana, Aaron Molly.
Boom.
You don't hate Aaron Molly. You just hate her name.
Well, whatever.
Don't worry, you'll never hear Ginger and Kenny and Aaron Molly's names mentioned again on this show.
Until
Plus, you know I love Karen, but she be mean to my Laura. You don't be mean to my Laura.
Laura was distracting the investigation by pushing this Richard narrative on the police.
I think
so I get where Karen was coming from.
She really believed that he did it, though. He
I
left
would have
him. He did it.
I mean, it's very suspicious. You run away right after someone dies.
Yeah, I would have done the same thing. I'm like, yep, he did it.
When you're a suspect, I think that's the one thing you don't want to do.
What was also interesting in this episode is we got another recast, and a different actor is playing the role of Jason, Laura and Richard's oldest son.
Valerie's son.
I was like, is this a recast or whose son?
Yeah,
he was in a show called Valerie with Valerie Harper.
And then it changed names like a million times because Valerie Harper left or got fired or whatever the drama was. And I think it finally became like Valerie's Family, and then it was just like
it's like what happened with Roseanne and the Connors.
Right. Yes.
I didn't realize it was a different kid, but I mean, Jason brings nothing to the show, so
yeah. This Jason will probably be around for like 3 seasons, and he's definitely struggling with why did his dad leave, and there's a lot of animosity boiling.
I like this Jason.
He's good. Yeah, he's a good one.
Yeah.
They also
Laura should have just went, honey, your daddy killed my lesbian lover.
I liked too that they had a scene in the backyard of Laura's place, and now we've been on summer break as the audience. The story picks right up, but there's a pool out back now.
Real quick, who just lets their young I love you, Laura, but who just lets their young son hang around the pool by themselves?
Yeah. She treats him
Also,
like a little adult.
yeah, okay, so I wasn't sure. I was like,
And where's the
was there
baby? Where's
always a
Daniel?
pool? He's inside.
What?
But
Say it again.
I wasn't sure if there was always a pool.
There wasn't.
And
I think the owner of that house, from all the mad money they're getting from CBS, installed the pool
Yeah,
because it was the only
and-
house that didn't have one.
there's a scene. It's not important. I can mention it now. I think it's in a later episode that we've watched out of these. But where Jason's like, I hate him. I hate him. He doesn't want to see me.
Yes.
Referring to Richard.
Oh, that's the.
And he
oh.
runs upstairs. I'm like, wasn't this a ranch?
They built
Is there
a
an
deck.
upstairs?
They built a deck, a pool, all this stuff. Like, they were getting paid good money back then.
I'm
We
like,
gotta-
I don't think there's an upstairs. There is an upstairs because Laura's always running up the stairs. Like, I hate you, Richard, because you don't want to let me be with CJ.
Yeah.
But
We got to revisit that scene later because Laura's outfit got to me in that scene.
Aaron likes to talk about Laura's outfits and how they badly dress her sometimes. That's for sure.
they really dress her up to the chin. They really
Yes.
dress her up.
It's like someone went, we don't like your neck. We're going to cover it up.
Oh.
I love Laura.
and
Everything
I-
about Laura.
Yeah, I
But
think,
that season 4 haircut.
today's
Her hair grew out a
Constance's
little bit.
birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday, Constance.
It
I know
is
you're not
her
watching,
birthday
but if
today.
you are,
Oh,
I
I
love you.
love you so much.
Yeah, I remember you. I think you tweeted, I retweeted it.
She's my
I'll retweet it
favorite.
after the show.
Marty-
Something.
Marty Dread in season 9.
Well,
It's
that's
good.
a long while away.
It's good
It's
though.
probably like at least a year away in our
I
viewing.
know, thank goodness.
So the next note I have is Karen and Val are having a walk on the beach. Val's kind of consoling her, and Karen asked Val if she's talked to Lucy lately, and I was like, "Ooh, a Lucy mention."
Right?
And Val initially says, "Yeah, I just talked to her like a few weeks ago, whatever. She's doing good." And Karen's just kind of like, "What if I lose?" What's her name? Diana.
You forgot her already.
Good
Yeah.
riddance.
But then Val
It's
says,
funny.
Val says to Karen, truthfully, she hasn't talked to Lucy for 7 or 8 months.
For 7 or 8 months, yeah. Yeah. But I was just happy for like the Dallas connection, and I was like, "Oh, we remember that Lucy." She actually mentions when Lucy came to visit in season 1. I was like, "Oh, we're talking about things that happened in the past. Great."
I
Right?
like Abby mentions JR and Miss Ellie too. I noticed that. I was like,
Mhm.
yes.
Yes.
So at the end of the episode, Gary, his case gets dismissed and he's let go, and he jumps up and he immediately looks at Val with a smile, and they're just smiling at each other. And
Mhm.
Abby is not happy. She just like pulls him in like, "This is my man."
Mhm.
And he's still looking at Val, smiling.
You know, I don't feel like she's going, that's my man. I feel like she's going, that's my money.
You're right. You're exactly right.
That is, but it when it comes to Val, Abby gets territorial and she plays the whole like he's mine.
Yeah,
now.
because she
Like,
don't
gets-
want Val to get her money.
She just I don't even think it's that. I think it's that she feels Valine is weak and she doesn't like that about her at all. She's like, you're a weak woman and I can have everything you have, and that's it.
Why doesn't she love Karen? Karen's not a
But
weak
she-
woman.
But she also knows, even though she's a weak woman, that Gary has a pull towards her, even though he
Right.
left her for her.
Mhm.
That
And Abby
that's-
wants
it's
to
a
win.
thorn, it's a thorn in her side, and she likes to play up this narrative that Val's this like gold digger, like Abby is, but she's not. And we'll get to that later. There's a moment, I think, either in the next episode or two. But
Yeah.
we'll.
I
cover
do like how much
that.
I do like how much they featured Janet, who was on the prosecution side, and she kind of had an attack
I
of
like
conscience
Janet.
and realized
I
how
like
loose
her.
their case was against Gary, and kind of said
Yeah.
as much on the stand, and that's why it all got dismissed.
I actually had the thought. I wish that this actress had stuck around. I was like, they couldn't find something for her to do. Like, she's really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
She is. I must mention she was in Charlie's Angels in season 4, and she was in a really good episode. She stands out a lot.
nice.
She was a villain.
Really.
She was a really good villain.
That's all I have for that episode. I really took minimal notes on that episode. What about you guys?
I didn't take notes at all.
The only other thing that I had was Lily May's on the cusp of starting to feel guilty for not telling that investigator that came around that she knew who Chip was when he came around with the Tony Phineas flyer.
I
And
have something.
we'll see
That's
Lily May's reactions as we go on here, but I just kind of wanted to plant that seed out there.
I have something that's going to shock you.
Boom, boom, boom.
Okay.
I love Lily May now.
You know, I love her
Not
too in these
temporarily.
episodes.
It's temporary.
She's good.
She's so good in these 7 episodes we're discussing.
She's great. She's amazing.
She
Okay.
is.
But it's very
I have
temporary.
to be the contrarian. I was actually really starting to like Lily May in season 4, and she's getting on my nerves so much now in season 5.
But she is so well cast by Julie Harris. So I
Oh,
love,
she's-
again, it's the writing and what the character has to do and stuff like that. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel she acted the emotions so well. And I liked her.
She's doing
she's so
the
torn
actress
about
is doing
Chip,
a great
you know what
job.
I mean? She's
She
torn
kills
about
it.
Chip.
Yeah, the actress
Yeah.
Julie Harris is doing an amazing job. Love her. She's doing great.
Yeah.
But I feel like she's an irritant. People will be talking about something and she's just going in her own little world, going on and on about Chip. And they're not even talking about Chip. And she just keeps going and going and going until the person that is in her presence snaps on her. And I'm just like, yes, I would have snapped on her too.
She's an irritant through the whole series. I mean, she's
I
pretty
know, but
terrible.
it comes in waves because I feel like it comes in waves for me.
She
Like,
didn't
I
even have the
love-
auto harp in this episode, Tommy, and you're attacking that poor woman.
She gets on my nerves, but I love what she brings to the show. Like she brings the drama.
I do too.
I think we captured
Some
it
of her
all.
some of her one-liners, I don't know if it was in this episode, but I just have to say it because it did have me cracking up. So
Right.
Karen is in Diana's room and she's like, looking at how empty it is and she's just sad and she's missing Diana. And Lily May's going on and on and on, about how this is all her fault if she hadn't brought Chip into their lives, blah, blah, blah. And she starts telling this story about how she ran away once when she was a child. And
She
she
was
had this
10.
one line that it just cracks me up. She's like, when they returned me back to my mama, she was praising God, thanking him for my deliverance. I was like,
Yes.
deliverance?
Her mama
You're
was
right.
probably trying to sell her.
What do you? I think we covered it all for this episode. What do you want to
Yes.
rate this?
Wait, I do have Abby fights for control. She was starting to finagle with the money. She was with Jim, right? Was that his
Right?
name?
It is Jim Westmont,
And
Was-
of course,
was this
Karen
when
breaks
they were
down at
trying to-
dinner.
right?
Because she breaks down in every episode.
Yeah.
Oh, and then didn't we
Which is
find
gonna
out
lead
CG
to-
was pregnant in this one? Is that
We did.
No, we
well,
knew
we
she
knew
was-
that at the end of last season, but it did
okay?
say it was kind of inconclusive that Chip could have been the father because he did have blood that matched. But
Right.
So did we
they
find
said
out?
the
Did
same
we
with
find out?
Gary, but we all know that Gary and CG didn't sleep together. We know that was Chip's kid because
He
we
was
got
so
that
drunk he couldn't get it up.
right.
Wait,
he
did we
passed
know
out every
why?
time.
For sure.
Passed out every time.
But
Yeah, right.
So did we find out who the father was or no?
I think
Just-
it's Chip. I think CG called him out on it because really that's all who she was sleeping with. I think
Yeah.
we as the
Yeah,
inside.
because I remember last season was when that other detective said this chick had a thing for guys with O positive blood
Yeah.
because they have the same blood type.
Two
Funny.
guys have the same blood type, and he's like, "Oh, shit, that's pink pro positive."
right.
He wanted to sleep with Laura, but 1980s.
Who, you know what? I bet she was O positive too.
Ooh.
All right, so I would rate this episode a 7 because for me it's a transitional episode.
Gotcha.
I'd say 6.
What?
It wasn't my favorite.
Chuck.
I hate courtroom stuff.
There wasn't that
Oh.
much of it, though, I didn't think.
I hate when soaps do courtrooms. I hate it.
I'll
Sorry.
Eric, you go.
I'm a 9.5. I loved it. I thought it clean. I was just like, it got me right back in. It sucked me back in when I rewatched because I'm in season 12 with my friend.
Got
So when I rewatched these, I was like, damn, this is good. It's good stuff. 9.5 for me.
I'd say I'd probably give it a 7.5. You know what I mean? Based on the 7 that we watched and the drama that comes, yeah, it was good. It did pull us back in. I liked how they wrapped up what was going on with Gary. Again, I love the Gary and Val, Romeo and Juliet pull that's happening in it and stuff like that. But it was so Gary centric and what was going on with that. And there's nothing wrong with it. But we kind of all knew he was going to get off and they were going to move on with it. So that's why I'm saying like 7.5.
Okay. All right. Well, episode 2 is called Fugitives. I took a little bit more notes, but still not as much as I usually do.
Here's my one note. We focused too much on Diana and her screaming.
Oh.
She really didn't scream that much in this episode.
Every time she talks, she screams.
She's very theatrical.
I thought she was theatrical. She's very much like, am I going to get it?
This whole her and Chip storyline, I hate because one minute she's all scared. Oh my gosh, she's a fugitive. He says, I killed her for you. I love you. Well, you're just a psycho, girl.
Listen, 19-year-old me probably would have fell for that too. I just say, like, you did it for me. Oh my god, you love me.
I would draw the line at murder. You know, like, oh, I robbed this liquor store for you. Oh, really? Oh, thanks. I murdered someone.
I can honestly say that I couldn't tell you which way 19-year-old me would have went.
Diana's been pretty consistently a monster since day one. I will say that, but she's a great actor.
I know.
And Diana is around 19, so.
Sid Fairgate had 2 awful daughtars.
Oh.
Hey, we don't know much of Annie. She could be great now, for all we know.
In one episode, I hated her. That's how you knew it. I was glad she never got talked about.
My first note I took because of you, but then I found out that it wasn't necessary. But I'll say it anyway. So Lily Mae, while they're all like trying to figure out the whole situation at Karen's house, with Detective Beans, she keeps mentioning that Chip gave her this pin, and I was only aware of this because you said that this pin was going to come back, and now I know that it came back later. But I thought that this was it, and I was like, "Is this what he was talking about?"
That's what I mentioned. It's so strong. Yep.
Yeah. So she's just like, "He gave me this pin. He gave me this pin."
It's all about the pin.
That's my first note. And then I have Ben pretends to run on the beach just to talk to Val.
Right. That was kind of sweet.
It was cute. And he's like out of breath. Like she's like, how often do you run? And he's like, like
well, and maybe not wear a sweater when you're running on the beach like he had on. I mean,
maybe it was chilly from the breeze from the ocean.
It could have been, but I get hot the minute I'm running, so I would be like, I don't know. It looks like.
But I'm all like, girl, he has a beach house. Tap that. Like.
Can I mention in this episode that Karen breaks down?
I will say Karen and Diana are very believable as mother-daughter because when they cry and scream, I'm like, get over
it. Just like home.
Are you like, oh, it feels like my mom and my sister?
It's kind of funny that Diana's like writing a postcard to send home to her mom after she just up and left. You know what I mean? That was kind of
I was like,
weird disconnect.
Well, because at this point, you know, she did tell Karen, she's like, when Chip is ready, I'm going. And she did it very calm.
True.
Season 4.
True.
Karen was the one that was flying off the handle. She's like, well, I told her. Like,
Karen flew off the handle.
But then Chip throws the postcard away anyhow, so it never makes it. So there's a lot of almost and finally some connection in this episode.
My next note was Chip and Diana road tripping, so that must have been in response to the postcard, because I don't know why I would write that. But
well, and it's while they're while they're at a hotel and he's showering and she's got the TV on and she finally sees a news report about him and that his real name is Tony Finese and he's a wanted man. And she has to fake it when he comes out of the shower. So then they're eating in a restaurant and there's a policeman there and she's kind of looking at him and he's a little bit nervous. And then the policeman finally leaves to Chip's relief. But then then she's kind of being obvious looking at the police officer. And she's supposed to not knowing that he's Tony Finese, but she's making it obvious that, oh, there's a police officer, we're on the run. Right.
You're not supposed to know that you're on the run.
Oh, and now now the police's focus now that it's moved from Gary, it has shifted to Chip. And since they know Diana went with Chip, the police have now put a tracer on the Mackenzie's house.
And this is what I love about the soaps, because with Diana, like, I felt like you think it's going to go one way. Oh, she's going to find out, and then she's going to be like, "Oh, screw this, I'm out of here." But it goes a totally different way that you're like, "What the fuck?"
Right.
Oh, I actually found it believable because Diana's very selfish. So as soon as he said, "I did it for you," I was like, "Oh, no, there we go, Bonnie and Clyde."
Well, I love, though, the angst and excitement when she did finally make it to a payphone and calls her mom and gets through, and Karen's excited to hear her voice, and then Chip comes up and does the old hang up on her, and Karen flips out and goes totally New Jersey housewife style and flipping the table and running upstairs screaming, "You guys are all idiots, what are you doing?"
Yeah, Karen screamed a little much during these 7 episodes for my liking. I get it. Your daughter's gone, but sorry, your daughter's Diana.
This is an unraveling season for Karen.
Don't worry,
Dirty
next
Diana.
season I don't think she's screaming at all.
So I have that Diana tries to sneak off in the morning,
Right.
but Chip disconnected the car battery, so she couldn't start the car.
Because he's worried
Yeah,
that somebody would
he's-
steal the car. He tells
He's
her.
so creepy in these scenes because she's like trying and she's trying and she's trying, and then he just taps on the window and she's like,
Right.
and he's like, "Oh, we should get an early start." Like she hasn't been trying to run away from him. Like, "Oh, you couldn't sleep? We should get an early start." And then he puts his arm around her, almost around her neck, which is like to hold her torso, and is like, "Oh, by the way, I disconnected the battery so that nobody could steal your car." But in such a I feel like he's leaning into the evil, mischievous nature of who he really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get Diana's pull with Chip. I don't get it.
It's her first. It's probably the first guy she fucked.
Yeah.
Thomas. I don't think that's true.
Well, remember the guy in high school? He it was he couldn't. It was messy and they couldn't do it.
Yeah. And then he talked a good game, I think,
Yeah.
This,
He's very charming.
Yeah,
I
he
can't
is.
say that I would not have fallen for it.
Right.
There was
I
a
don't know.
scene, I don't remember what episode it was in, but Lily Mae was going on her rants about Chip because that's all she talks about. And Val just says, because she's so focused on Gary, it was probably the first episode, where she says, "I didn't really get to know him as well as you did, Mama." And she just leaves it at that.
funny. This was also the episode where Gary tells Abby he can't stay at the beach house anymore and he wants to buy a ranch that he's gone and looked at.
Wow. Literally next line, Gary by the ranch. Thanks,
Yep.
Val.
It's funny.
Which, if you remember last season, he wanted to, and she discouraged it. And...
Exactly.
But she actually says this time, it was wrong of me mentioning the past, to discourage you last year.
Yeah. She's
This is
demurring a
what makes
little
you
bit
happy.
after. Yeah, she's demurring a little bit after.
She's
him being
demurring, but
revealed.
she's playing a game.
Totally.
She's playing a game.
Well,
I love the way her eyeshadow looks. in these few episodes.
There was a scene where they had sex either in the pool or by the pool. They definitely were in the pool at some point because their hair was wet.
right.
But it was in the afterglow. So their hair was messy and wet, like pool hair or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, wow, her eyeshadow is still on point and her cheek, her blush. I was like, looks great for just being in the pool.
Right.
I don't know. I love her. Her eyeshadow is great.
That's awesome.
Of all the stuff in the
I love
episode, that
her.
was my favorite part. I guess.
And we spotted Brian in this episode, who we saw maybe 3 other times throughout the first 4 seasons.
Funny.
Right. At least he wasn't tooting that damn horn like he
That
was
horn when they
came on.
first introduced them. Gosh. Val gets upset too because she finds out that Ben is a cable news guy. And she feels like he's just after a story, not interested in her.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she's turned off on him right away. As quick as she meets him, finds that out and she's turned off by that.
I have a cop is behind Chip and Diana in the car.
Yep.
and he passes them, and Chip starts to have an emotional breakdown,
Mm-hmm.
and
Pull
he
the
comes
car
up with
over.
and he comes up with like a twisted version of events, like a woe is me story to make him look like the victim
Yeah.
of like to kind of get Diana on his side, and
Right.
he admits to accidentally killing CJ, which it probably was an accident, but the way he proceeded afterwards,
I don't
wasn't
think so.
I don't think it was an accident.
I don't think it was either.
Again, I think Chip's worried about everybody deserting him, and he says his confession to her basically said that he killed her so they could be together. So now he's trying to make Diana, he's really laying a guilt trip on Diana, saying, you gotta love me because I did this for us.
I think he knew exactly what he was doing because he didn't want that kid.
Because he started seeing Diana start to pull away in this whole episode too. So he had to come back with something strong to really make her feel like he really loves her and she should stay with him.
That's all I have for this episode. As far as
that was the last note I had too, was about the police car passing him and his confession to her.
Well, I did have Gary, as a drunk that he is still a better parent than Abby was. Because the way he talks to the kids.
True.
He does do very well.
Yes.
He's really good with the kids. Unless it's his own kid.
It's almost like they're his it's almost like they're his reason to stay sober in a way. Because it's like he's fighting with Abby and he's like, come on kids, let's go for a walk. It's like he's being like a good dad. Like he would have been to Lucy if he had given the chance.
Let's face it, Gary and Val have been more parents to those two kids than Abby ever has been.
Yeah, too bad they wouldn't have done that with their own kid.
Right?
Sorry, I have issues when it comes to things like that.
But JR, I think, had a big hand on why they couldn't have Lucy.
Yes, it's JR's fault. And Lily, because she's JR.
But Mrs. Ewing,
Miss Ellie,
Miss Ellie, thank you, could have probably said, like, no, that girl needs to be with her mama and daddy.
And that's why she gave him the house, because she felt so guilty that she didn't. And she kowtowed to the men at the ranch, and she realized when Gary and Val got remarried that was a mistake, and that was her way of washing her conscience a little bit too.
Which, I mean, I know it was a different time back then, but
yeah,
I have my issues with Miss Ellie as much as I love her, but that's Dallas. I can't speak about that.
So again, I would give this episode a 7 because like it's a solid episode, but it's not like the episode that you talk about, like one of the most famous episodes. So I think a 7 is like an average episode.
Definitely I'll say it's average. I don't even think I can give it a number.
Wow. So it's like less than 0.
No.
Landing writer. Sorry.
Episodes 1 through 7 I like. If we're rating them as a whole, I would be able to rate it better. This is one of those just like
a filler episode for you.
It's the Diana. I'm sorry. I know I talk about that a lot, but
poor Diana.
Just the way she's acting.
He texted me, I hate Diana, and I was like, I get it.
Well, I said I can't stand Diana. I try not to use the word hate, even though I do. She's just so ungrateful. She is so ungrateful, and it just
she's also a little delusional.
Yes, and this is I love Abby, and I love Laura, who's sitting there saying her husband is the killer when he, comes to Diana. I'm just like,
I'm not going to use this. I'm not going to use this as an excuse. I'm just going to say perhaps Diana's behavior stems from the fact that she lost her father.
She was like that before she lost her father.
But I don't think she'd be this bad if she had her dad there guiding her and calming her down and bringing her back down to earth.
Well, that's what we have to talk about in a later episode, that this happened, with the Eric conversation. Yeah. That kind of turned her around a bit.
So in the chat, Matt Creeder in the chat says, Chip was whoever he needed to be for the person he was with. I think he only revealed a little of himself to Lily Mae. That's true.
I think he played her from
when he revealed himself when he murdered CG, that he was a violent man. Because he was violent to whoever he was before. I think that's when you get to see the real Chip, is when he's violent. When he would get angry if,
With
Diana.
CG, he'd get physical with her even too, where he's never done that with Diana. He's maybe gotten a little bit short with Diana, but he's never like.
It looks like he's had to hold himself back when it
Right.
comes to Diana.
Right.
I think he
Well, we know that he has a history of domestic abuse because that's what he's wanted for.
Right.
I think with Diana, he's holding off on his domestic abuse and really playing on the emotional abuse.
Mhm. He did the same thing with Lily May, I feel like, too. Like, he emotionally screwed her. And
I think
so. What would you?
I think when CG wasn't playing into his emotional abuse, he got violent and she said, "No, I gotta get rid of her."
I'll give it a 7. I'll give this a 7, Tommy, to help answer that question.
I'm a 7 too. Yeah.
Because I think if he would have just killed CG on accident, he wouldn't have taken her body to the wherever and dumped it. So, episode 3.
So you're holding out a grade for this episode, Aaron?
6.5.
Boom. There we go.
All right.
I would not ball at all.
I haven't drank it out of him, but we got
blame it on the Very daiquiri. You got a 6.5.
Okay. All right. So episode 3 is called Nowhere to Run. And Diana is all in on continuing with running with Chip. That's my first line.
With each passing episode, when it comes to Diana, I am hating her more and more.
You hated her more.
I get it.
Each episode, I think she can't get worse. Surely she can't get worse. Here, Chip, make this look like a gun and pretend you're holding me hostage.
Okay, I don't know if I'm remembering. I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but correct me if I'm wrong. You guys, I reckon
you're wrong. No,
but I think it's heavily. Diana plays heavily like this in like the first quarter of the season, and then we kind of see less and less of her, and then this is her last season, so she's like
softens. She softens, if you will.
Yeah, she softens.
Yeah. So don't worry, Aaron. There's not much more you have to deal with this.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
The police have traced Diana's credit card to the gas station that she used it at in the previous episode.
New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Diana and Chip trade in their car for a clunker.
$500 gone.
Right. For a brand new car, right?
I mean, good grief, that guy took them for a ride.
Sure did.
Oh, and I've seen that actor in like more, maybe in the last 20 years and more recent things. He's been in like everything, I guess.
He was Growing Pains. He played Leonardo DiCaprio's father. He was in Will and Grace in season 1.
He was on the OC. Like,
in the OC, yeah. When they need a Southern guy, I think Hollywood's like, we need someone to pretend like he's from the South. Let's hire him.
Hire that guy.
He's tight.
I put that Gary asked Laura to come work for Gary Ewing Industries.
Yes, I love that.
Enterprises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That
but
office.
to also keep an eye on Abby.
Right.
I love that.
And he says, I love her, but I don't trust her.
Right?
Oh, I love her too, and I wouldn't try. I'd be like, girl, I love
I had a fleeting thought. I was like, this is the season that Abby becomes like the Amanda Woodward of Knots Landing. And I was like, well, Abby was first.
Right.
But Amanda Woodward was not. Abby's manipulative, and she knows that she's stabbing people in the back. Amanda would just make good business decisions and not care whose feelings
got hurt. Yes.
Amanda wouldn't purposely stab people in the back. So in a way, Abby's worse because she's like, well, I'm stabbing this person in the back, but I'm going to be secretive about it. And if it comes out, oh well.
I keep waiting for her to sleep with her little henchman, and I'm shocked it hasn't happened.
I think it's coming. I don't remember.
It might be on to something.
I keep waiting for
fish that joins this season that gets Abby's.
Well, I keep waiting for her to push all the stuff off the table and just be like, "Take me, henchman." I can't remember his name.
Jim.
Take me now.
Take me, henchman. James Westmount.
James Westmount.
I kind of like that. Take me, henchman. Take me now.
Take me, underling.
Ooh, that's even better. Because he is smitten with her. You can see it in his eyes. He's like, Abby. I bet if this was today's world, though, her henchman would be gay.
Probably.
Probably.
Matt said that he hates Diana as much as you, Aaron.
Praise the Lord above.
I think it's a universal hate amongst.
I think so too.
How are you guys feeling about Mac this season?
I adore Mac. I love Mac.
Mac.
Here, Tommy will hear how I can explain my hate for Diana to Tommy, and he'll understand. I would rather Daniel Jonas come back to Days of Our Lives than have to continue watching Diana scream.
Wow. Hardcore.
That's funny.
How dare you mention his name?
I knew you would understand that.
I get it.
I think Mac is trying to be strong for Karen, and he sees how, Karen is struggling and stuff too. But Karen wastes no time when she finds out that Diana, I might be jumping ahead here. They find out about the car exchange happening like around Oklahoma, and Karen ends up hopping on a plane and heading out there.
All those mountains, though, they keep showing up in Oklahoma. All those mountains.
Going off of the Mac love that we have, that conversation is just so them. Like, he's like telling her about it, and she kind of pauses. He's like, Karen, don't do it. And she's like, I have to. And he's like, don't do it. And she's like, okay, can't promise you anything. Bye, love you.
Right?
I feel like that would be me and John. Karen, don't do it. Okay, let's not have this conversation because I'm going to do it.
They write for them. They write for them really well. I love their stuff.
Yeah, I don't think they couldn't have done that for Karen and Sid.
No.
You're right.
I love that he's like understanding. He sees where she's coming from, and he knows why she's reacting the way she's reacting. And he's like, "Are you okay? You're okay. Good. Why the hell did you come here?"
But I feel like
if
Sid was still around, there would just be a lot of, "Oh, is he going to cheat? Is he not going to cheat?" kind of storylines.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So it's interesting when those guys are having a picnic and the cops drive by, and again, Chip's panicked, and Diana's like, "Afternoon, officer," and he's like, "Let's go," and down the road they head, and right away.
I thought it was interesting. He was like, "Leave the food." I'm like, "You ain't got no other food. You better take it."
Grab the bologna, Diana.
I was like, she just bought this. That's a waste of money.
I know.
Like, I don't know how to be runaways.
But that car didn't last too long.
No, it didn't.
So this was after the make of the car and the license plate was announced on the radio. Right. And I'm like, did this cop not get the memo? Because like he literally circled the parking lot where the car was with the license plate, and he just left.
Well, think about it. They don't have all the technology that we have now.
Funny.
It may not have made it to their station yet. But all I got to talk about all those mountains in Oklahoma that aren't there.
This is also when Diana says, "I'm Mrs. Tony Finesse" to the cops.
We're not there yet.
Is that the next one?
No, it's coming, but we jumped ahead.
It's coming in this episode, but we're not there yet. It's that.
He stopped you on that one.
My bad.
So
poor note taking.
So the car breaks down, right? And at this point, Chip is feeling defeated.
Right. She's got to will him to get up off the ground.
And now Diana is on a mission. She's like, "No, we're in love. You did this for me. You killed that bitch for me. We're gonna be together. I love you."
That could be why I have such hate for Diana. Is because I have such love for CG.
I was gonna say CG lived, or CG died, and Diana lives. That doesn't wash.
Here's how much I love Lisa Hartman. The other day we were driving, and Hole in the Heart comes on. And John has my phone and he turns it. I'm like, "Why'd you turn?" He's like, "We've heard it so many times." That's how much I listen to
Aaron just called it. Aaron just called it "Hole in the Heart," and it's "Hole in My Heart."
I blame the daiquiri. Hey, I'm listening to a song from the '80s. At least I'm listening.
I was gonna say she's been drinking.
Forgive me, Lisa Hartman. I was just hoping I got your name right. Oh, Hartman Black.
Mm-hmm. They're on tour, Lisa and Flynn, I think, right now.
Could you imagine me standing there? "I love you, CG. Play Hole in My Heart."
She probably would.
Their song.
Probably.
So I have, they end up spending a night in an abandoned shack. And the next morning, she's like, I have some leftover bologna and cheese. I'm like, girl, that cheese is probably sour.
John was like, ooh, I wouldn't eat that.
Yeah, I was like,
I mean,
yeah, stomach
it's
kind of
summertime, and we live in the South. There's no way we would eat anything left outside for longer than 10 minutes.
Right.
Well, that was the only food they had.
No,
They had no choice.
Yeah, and then they're going to eat that bologna, and they're going to be looking for a bathroom.
And there wasn't one in that shed from what I saw.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, the cops had found the abandoned car, so they're closer now too. They're up on the mountain and they see the shed.
And they call for
backup. I can't remember how Karen and Mac find out about it.
Let's call that a hill because Oklahoma doesn't technically have mountains.
Right.
I'm pretty sure.
And it was a hill, let's face it, because Mac runs down the hill.
Because when we were watching it, even John was going, those are some interesting mountains in Oklahoma.
Right.
Yeah. And as a breakaway from that scene, I have Abby gets office space with a luxury apartment attached to it. I was like, girl.
I know, it's like a condo.
It's like for those nights where I just can't make it out of town.
And I was thinking, you got 2 kids. You need to make it out of town.
Right?
But they got a staff at that ranch now, Aaron, and everything too. They got a Teresa there. They've got this. They've got that. They're just like, they're staffed.
She has no kids anymore. It's the staff's kids.
Yep.
And Gary's.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, then we go back to the standoff, and I have Mac and Karen show up at the standoff.
Yeah.
And Diana's all in. She's like, put this thing against my neck from far away so you're done. And then
I
get us
like
a car
how
and get
the one who's having a breakdown says the logical thing. They're not going to believe this is a gun.
Right.
Like, it's too far away. They won't notice. I'm like, do you want them to start firing at you?
Right. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So this is when Mac decides to go down the hill and try to like have a rational conversation with them. And he tells the officer to tell his men to stand down as far as shooting.
Yeah, because much like Aaron, Mac just runs into the violence.
I love Mac though. He's such a
I know, too.
Well, and he sees the cops are closing in and going to charge, so Mac decides he's got to run in too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And they get their hands on Chip. They arrest him. And there's reporters there. They're trying to interview Karen. Karen's ignoring them. They all like rush the shack, the reporters and everybody. And as he's being handcuffed and put into the car, they're trying to interview Diana. And they say, Miss Fairgate, like, do you have anything to say about this? And she's like, it's not Miss Fairgate. It's Mrs. Tony Fenice. Favorite line ever. That's when I was like, oh shit, shit's going down.
That was like, get it directly to her mom too.
Right.
So that wasn't that episode, right? Or was it the next episode? I'm confused.
It was.
That's how that one ended.
Because the press was trying to get an answer from her as they're hauling him away in the cop car. And that's when they addressed her incorrectly. She's like, it's Mrs. Tony Fenice. And Karen's like, punched.
That's why I pushed that to the side, Eric. I don't like to talk about the plot out of order.
I'd like to know. They really well, no, she cleaned out her bank account. So I was going to say, how'd they get married if they had no money? But they cleaned out her bank account. That's right.
Yeah. So allegedly, I mean, we don't find this out in this episode, but allegedly they went to Vegas on the way and got
correct. Yeah.
Like my mother.
Did they really get married? Because I almost don't believe it, because she did not have that I'm married glow. Or they probably wouldn't have had a ring, but just she didn't have that I'm married. Or when she thought he was crazy, oh my gosh, who did I marry? You know.
Right. They were also on the run though, so I'm going to give her that why they didn't, because
maybe
she's trying to.
They didn't tell us she was married till they knew they were going to need to use it for the court. You know.
Can't testify.
So I'm gonna give this episode an 8 because I feel like, all right, we're amping it up now. Things are happening.
Right.
Like I was like, all right, I need to see more. Like things are starting to like come along now. Yep. So an 8 for me.
I mean,
go.
I could see. I mean, I'm gonna
hang on.
Remove the Diana.
Hang on. I like
Remove the Diana.
Adjust your crown.
Hang on. All the Diana's almost gone. Yeah, I could see it as an 8.
I'm gonna say 8.5.
Ooh.
Oh no, it had Diana. It can't go that far.
Ooh. I'm going to say 8.5 too. We'll balance out the scales there, Eric.
Okay.
I love the writing. I think it's so good.
The
I
writing
really
is
do.
excellent.
It really is. I think this season, like, just shit hit the fan, and it just goes and goes and goes.
Yep. For the
I
5th
do-
year, they were really firing on everything.
I feel really bad for Karen because she went from being so worried about her daughter's safety and trying to find her to learning, oh, my daughter's in on this. Like she had to think, does Diana know about the that he
Yeah.
murdered? Did she help?
Right?
Yeah.
She's like, oh, my daughter's a nut.
Yeah.
And has to deal with that.
Well, she already knew that.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Man,
All right,
I
so
really
episode-
dislike this character.
Episode 4 is called Marital Privileges. Oops, I'm slurring. Hello.
Drink some more.
Abby finds out that Gary is set to inherit. Now, I don't know if I got this percentage right. 10% of viewing oil?
Mhm.
They
10%.
redid, yeah. Now he's going to get 10% of viewing oil because.
Okay, I was like, did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So his divorce will be final in 10 days, and the inheritance 5 days after that. So she's like, I got a 5-day window to get married.
I gotta move.
And you know what? I gotta say, Abby's scheming for this marriage throughout the whole episodes that we watched. I was like, maybe I need to take some notes from Abby and to get Greg to marry me.
There you go.
Yeah, because that's exactly what's going to take. No, I'm just kidding.
If this bee can do it in 5 days, why can't I?
I know she had to work fast. It's like I was like, "Come on, girl, you can't do this. There's no way, no way."
She's determined.
She wants that 10%.
He is determined.
She was close to not getting it, though, if things went a different way. Which,
I was starting to wonder.
Yeah.
I was really starting to
Diana-
like, oh,
Diana was really starting to like grate on my nerves at this point, so I kind of
you have to keep
moved away
mentioning
from
her.
taking
Like, at
notes
this
on that
point.
story.
It's like,
So I don't have a lot of
episode,
notes on the chit stuff.
season
This is
5,
what- so
episode
let me-
1 didn't do enough for you on the Diana because it did for me.
No, because she wasn't
This-
screaming in episode 1. She wasn't in episode 1.
Oh, that's right, she wasn't.
Let's talk about this a little bit. Because I want to talk about how the fact now the cops have Chip in custody and the male detective or the male cop or whatever, I can't remember his name, he goes through the outline of what he thinks happened. And he's like, you left Diana at 6:30 and went over to CG's apartment. And then you got in a fight about her being pregnant, not wanting to get an abortion. And then she says she's going to tell everybody about the pregnancy and not wanting to have an abortion. And Chip picks up a metal object and they show in a flashback scene that it's
CG
a face.
flashback.
I
then
was
he-
so excited. I mean, I was sad while I was seeing her.
But it was a great
I
scene.
was so excited.
Yeah, it obviously was all filmed during that significant celebration episode. And
It was because her hair was the same.
on point. Yep. It was like he picks up a metal vase, strikes her over the head with it, cleans up the whole place like you're cleaning for your mom coming for a visit, puts her in a plastic bag, drives out to this pier, walks to the end of it, drops it, but he wasn't counting on the bag breaking and her body floating ashore.
Floating.
They've got a witness that saw Chip's car near that pier at 8:15 p.m. and then her body washed up on the shore a mile away.
Okay. I don't get the whole bag thing.
Well, because he just didn't want to probably get caught carrying a body.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
But
Need a bag.
does she just keep a bag that's body sized in her apartment?
you saw her apartment. She's got a little bit of everything in there, Aaron. Come on now.
She was also tiny. She could fit in a black bag.
She ain't that tiny. I mean, she's small.
Aaron, are you like me? Do you read credits like for guest stars and stuff? Do you read
I
that
do.
stuff?
I do.
So were you excited when you saw Lisa Hartman as CG Dunn? Like, were you like, oh my god, I'm gonna see CG?
I was excited. I was like, ooh, ooh. Yeah, I was excited. And then they waited so long. I was like, as it got closer to the end, I was like, if you don't show me CG, we gonna have.
You promised me some CG. Where is she?
I was like, Lynn, did you edit this episode wrong or something and take her out? Or what?
No. So they bring Diana back home.
Yes, Diana comes home.
About her.
And she's kind of distant to her mom right away and runs upstairs. The boys are happy to see her. Karen wants them to all eat together, and she's like, I'm not hungry. And up the stairs she goes.
The boy
pulled her hair and be like,
says,
"You're a grateful little thing. You're gonna eat. You've been gone for 4 days."
Yeah. Well, they say to her like, "Oh, you hungry or whatever?" She's like starving, and then Karen, "Oh, I'll make you something to eat." She's like, "I'm just gonna go to bed."
Okay.
Yeah, it was a nice moment with her brothers, I feel like, and then that Karen had to say something. Boop.
Yeah.
Right.
It's yeah.
So the next note I have is Abby wanders into campaign headquarters, Greg Sumner, and I'm like, oh, he's here.
Yep.
Greg is arrived.
In the past, I have not always loved Greg Sumner. He's not been my favorite character, but I have an open mind. I'm ready to receive because Laura was not always my favorite character, and now I love her, so I'm ready for a new experience.
Greg brings some good humor to the show and a deadpan delivery.
He reminds me a little bit of Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, he
like,
does.
Joker Jack Nicholson.
And he definitely has that Kennedy look, if you will, and that's why he was this political opponent trying to get his seat to the Senate. So,
well, he starts out great too with his relationship with Mac and all that. I think it's good stuff.
The background, exactly.
Yeah.
Abby offers him a check
from JR.
Kind of introduces herself as a representation for JR, for Ewing Oil.
I thought it was funny.
I like that. I like that he through phone calls, even though we don't see him. Like that, Abby has like this like communication with JR still.
Yeah, with JR.
JR would find a way
because
he would find a way to.
For all intents and purposes, Abby is the JR of the series.
Well, and also the last time we saw JR on Knots Landing, he said to Abby, "Just keep Gary out of Dallas," and so. They bonded over that, and so they've stayed in connection, and he's making sure that money and whatnot is kind of flowing to Abby too, to keep Gary tied up and keep him out of Texas and over to California.
They also bonded in the biblical sense too.
Well, that too.
But she could have had a Ewing baby if she wanted to.
But Greg tries to stay clean at this point and tears up the check and says, well, this wouldn't be a bribe for any offshore drilling that Ewing Oil wants to do here in California, because I couldn't take that. And that kind of impressed Abby, but it also scared her a little bit, like, oh, did I start off on the wrong foot with this guy? So she's a little apprehensive.
Matt said that he also hated Greg Sumner on the first run, and he's a lot stronger than Richard. I go back and forth with Greg Sumner. I'm ready to like receive him in a different way because I'm older now watching this.
Diana, Greg.
I have no experience with these few episodes we've seen. I remember him dating Paige, Nicholas Sheridan.
Yep.
But other than that, that's pretty much. Oh, and I know he marries Laura. But other than that, that's all I kind of know.
Very good.
Okay. I mean, he's funny, he's sarcastic, he has great one-liners, but overall, I've never really loved his character. So I'm open to new experience.
He's a tough character to love. He really, he's just.
My reason for not liking Richard was I didn't like the way he treated his wife.
Right.
Oh yeah, I hate it. I had that.
Definitely so.
You might feel the same way about Greg a little bit.
Because you could play it as, oh yeah, the times were different, but Mac, Sid, Gary, they still respected their wives enough. Richard didn't.
Yeah.
So there's also a significant scene here. Maybe you've got this in your notes, Tommy, with Abby and her henchman Jim being at her new offices, and this is when she sets up the Appaloon Corporation with a loan from Gary Ewing Enterprises.
Yes.
So she does this all without Gary knowing about it, of course. And I just want to mention that because that's pretty significant.
Because she has his power of attorney at this point, right? From the
right.
Yeah.
She still has that.
When the community property starts.
Yeah.
They throw in the word community property around a lot.
Right.
I have that Val, like during the divorce proceedings for Val and Gary, finally, it's been like a year and a half. But
Right.
Val doesn't want anything. She doesn't want any money. She has her own money. She's a published author, a successful published author.
She wants the house
She doesn't want any ties. She doesn't. She just wants the house and the
And
car.
the car.
Okay, part of me
That's
was
it.
like, good for you, good for you. I'm gonna want more than that.
Right.
Also, you're the Lily May, because Lily May was upset when she found out that that's all that Val was getting.
Yeah.
You
Try for more. You deserve it.
No matter
I like this.
Val got half, he still had more. He's a
I like the
Ewing.
scene outside of the court when
Right.
Gary's walking Val to the car,
Right?
and she's saying like he's like you earned it. She's like, you make it sound like it was a job that I had to work. Like,
I
that
was like,
earned it.
girl, you did kind of have to take care of him quite a few times. Yeah.
I mean, I
Get
kind
her.
of was like, girl, you
Get
didn't
her.
earn it. But like,
And they agree to
But-
disagree. They agree to disagree, and he says, "Don't
Yeah,
be too proud to ask for it if you do need it." And she kind of nods her head,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, I thought that was a
Yeah.
great moment with them.
Um,
They really
and
teased
but
the
it's-
Gary and
it's
Val
that thing.
fans.
It's that it wasn't even tension. I don't even know what to call it. It was the connection. And you're just like, oh, they still have
Totally.
it. And they were in a good place. They don't hate each other. They're not in a
Yep.
bad like.
Yeah,
It was just
it's
kind of
very
like, oh,
much-
we're getting back to a good, like we're good.
Our divorce is
We care
final.
about
We
each
kind
other.
of want to go to a hotel room. That's kind of what I got.
I liked when Abby finds out about it because like I said earlier, Abby's all like, oh, did she try to like sponge you for everything you're worth? And he's like, she didn't want anything
Right?
because Val's a good person. Abby.
Mhm.
I'm with Abby on that one too. I'd be like, I want some.
This is
So-
also. Oh, go ahead, Tommy.
I was gonna say Abby is giving Laura a lot of properties to look at to kind of
Yes.
distract her
To
from
distract her, yeah.
with James Westmount. She's like, oh yeah, look at this one. Let me know what you think. Look at that one. Let me know.
And
Like,
Laura,
sending her all over the place.
Stay out of my face.
that look Laura gives her, like, I know you're up to
Laura's
something.
looks are the best.
They are.
Laura
They
Laura
are.
doesn't give a fuck about anything.
Because
She's
she
so
knows. She knows
unamused.
Abby's a schemer. She knows exactly who Abby is. Abby slept with her husband. Abby stole
Yeah.
Val's husband for her. She knows
I'll
Abby
never
exactly
forget that
who it is.
kitchen scene. Abby, you're
This
such a
is-
slut.
This is there's a pivotal scene though in this episode that's got long range effects. This is when Abby tells Laura that her uncle Roger died and left her a bit of land, and it's an apartment complex on the beach, and that she needs to check into that.
Oh.
And that's when they find
See,
out that Karen also, because it was Sid and
See-
Abby's uncle, Karen also has inherited Sid's portion of this. So I just want to kind of get that out there
See-
so Aaron understands the importance of that
that-
land.
Yeah.
That got by me. I have notes on that for future episodes, but that line got by me.
It was in this one that when she was having her do all the real estate stuff, the last thing she said, "Oh, and here's this one thing," and she handed her a letter about it. And it was they didn't really build up that scene, but it was kind of a significant thing. Now knowing all the history behind it, that really stood out to me this time. Versus a regular viewer, you just don't kind of catch that.
Oh,
Right.
I caught it
Good,
because I was just like, ooh,
right?
I mean, I knew if that because Karen and Abby do not like each other,
That oil and water.
and I was just like, oh, that's gonna be fun when they have to get down to it.
I'll be
Yep.
back in just a second.
Okay.
So I have two quick lines in my notes. Sometimes I'm just like, this is when it was getting really good, so I'm like so into it, like I don't want to take notes. So it's like
Right.
sometimes a scene will start, and I'll just write a sentence, and then I'll continue to watch it. So
Right.
my next two lines are Ben and Val make up, and Lily May goes to visit Chip. Those are my next two lines.
I know. I would pause it to write some of these things too, because yeah. So what? I'll try and look at what I've got
so-
here for notes too. Like this is when
I
Val
had-
runs.
but I wrote more on the Lily May thing. So Chip accuses her of kind of being like sent there to get a confession out of him,
Right. And she's wearing the
she-
pin. She's got the pin on.
She's wearing the pin. So this is where I was like, oh, this is what he was talking about. That's why I said, oh, I thought this was it in the other episode. I was like, but it wasn't. It came later.
Right.
They fight, and she says she hates him and throws the butterfly pin at him.
Right.
I gotta say, these 6 episodes, I guess, because he wasn't in the first one. I hate Chip more than I did before. Because that smile he gives to the people, like, yeah, I got a way of murdering CG. I know you know I
He's
did
like
it.
leaning into his deviousness.
Yes.
He's just like, yeah.
What
And
are
I'm
we
just
on?
like,
Well,
I was like, okay, Lawrence Alamain, I see what you're doing there. You're preparing.
What episode are we on? Are we on the same one?
We're still on the same one. We're on episode.
Yeah, we're still on episode 4.
4. This one I've
Narrative
got the
privilege.
longest notes on.
We're talking about when Lily Mae went to visit Chip and she
Oh.
threw the butterfly pin at him.
Brutal.
She
Yeah.
knows. She's like, you killed that innocent girl, didn't you? And he's almost smiling back at her. And it's like Chip's only showed a little bit of vulnerability with Diana. Everybody else, he's got that damn smirk on his face. So your hate is justified, Aaron. I totally get it.
I think that's the first time I felt bad for Lily Mae. Honestly, out of the whole time so far.
Right?
'Cause she
I
was
think
fleeing.
Lily Mae,
I have Abby.
like, no, I think Lily Mae's thing with Chip was, yeah, he showed her attention, but she was getting to be like a mother and fill a role she hasn't been able to do with Val.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I think she, even though she knows that he lied, I think she wants to believe that something between them is real and that maybe she could break through to him. And
Yeah.
that in that scene, she realizes that it was all a lie and it just all comes crumbling down. And that's
So
when she's like, I hate you. And she throws it in.
Right. So let's talk about another big significant scene. How like Diana goes and visits Chip also at the jailhouse and says, I haven't said anything. They can't make me. And she goes home and Karen follows her right into her bedroom and starts badgering her. And then Diana confesses what Chip confessed to her by accident.
Yeah, I didn't take notes on that because I was just so done with that whole storyline.
I mean, well, that's when she says, you don't understand. He did it because he loves me. And it's like,
I thought
whoa.
Karen was going to be able to get through to her finally. Like, so you know, you're an accomplice now to this murder in a sense.
Right.
Even
So
though
then-
he is your husband, you still knew.
Yep.
Mhm.
So Karen goes to the police and tells Janet that, and Janet comes over to badger Diana, and that's when Diana looks at her mother and she's like, I hate you. I never want to see you again.
I did like when Karen, I don't know when she mentioned it, but what would your father think? Like, I was like, ooh, girl.
Well, that's Eric says that to her too, her brother.
I was going to say, Eric kind of says that in a later episode also.
Eric
Yeah.
doesn't,
I had
Eric doesn't just say it.
I have Abby calls the Mackenzies to tell them that Diana is staying there. And when Karen gets on the phone and asks to speak to Diana, Abby hangs up on her.
Hangs up on her.
Abby's doing the power play.
That's what
over
I
Karen.
don't get, though. Abby, as a mother, should understand what Karen's going through. When her kids were taken, and she did not know where they were,
Mhm.
in a
They
sense,
built-
this isn't the same because
They-
Diana went off on her own.
They build
They're
on that.
adult.
They build on that Abby Karen feud about the kids for the next and the past previous 2 years, and they build on it for 4 more years, Aaron. You'll see more come out because of that.
And my last note is Matt goes to the ranch to talk to Diana, and they have a fight, and Gary tells Mac that she can stay there and it might be good for her. And that's my last note on that.
Why are you being so mean to your mother? And then Diana
Yeah.
hugs Abby, and Abby goes, see what you do, or something like that. You know what I mean? And Mac just leaves in disgust. It's like, ugh. He realizes that Diana's so far gone, and now he's just worried about his wife because he's like, how am I going to get my wife to kind of let her be because she's just not going to listen because it's going to drive her crazy.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, like, as much as I hate Diana screaming and being dramatic, in a way it was good because it was like a callback to like this tension that's always been between Mac and Diana. So I like that because it was like, oh, we're back to basics. We're back to this. But I would give this episode a 7. I think it was like an average episode.
Did you spot the future Melrose Place star Jack Wagner at Sumner's Place?
Yeah, he was only in that one episode, but he was at the campaign headquarters and at the gym with them.
Yeah.
Do you know why? I did not realize it this time, but I have seen him. So in past, I have.
You recognize him?
Yep.
It was probably it was probably right before he did General Hospital, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
No, but I'll give it a 7.
A 7, yeah.
I would give this one an 8. I feel like a lot happened.
It was good. I'm just going to say 7.5. I'll fall in the middle there.
Okay. So episode, where are we? Episode 5?
5.
What One Kind of Justice. My first note is the male detective put gum in Chip's hair. Laugh out loud is my line.
Oh yeah, I have that too.
Nowadays, that would be. Ooh,
He didn't hit him. He just like took his gum and put it in his hair.
Right?
Which is almost worse because Chip's got nice hair.
He did.
I have Nick gum on Chip's head.
I don't know. I have less notes than usual on this, so I don't know if I was just so engrossed in this episode that I didn't want to stop to take notes.
Well, this is.
But the next line I have is Karen goes to the ranch with Eric to see Diana, and she refuses to leave until Diana is there or shows up. And Diana and her fight, and Eric steps in and slaps Diana. That epic slap.
Eric did what everybody, I'm sure, in America wanted to do. I don't condone it.
Right?
I don't whatsoever. And he shouldn't have done that. It was wrong. But man, I think America was happy that happened.
And then after the slap happens and Diana walks off, the look that Abby and Karen give each other, because Abby does and then Karen's just like, and just turns
like,
around.
Look at what you did.
It was basically, I told you not to push it, Karen, and Karen just turns and walks off, and so does Eric. But
And this is
I wrote Olivia watches from afar.
I think Erica was trying to snap some sense into her. Like when after someone passes away or something, you can get a little historical, and the only thing that works is if someone just kind of,
Yeah.
I'm not saying
I love Eric.
Right.
Eric's always trying to do the right thing. He's always trying to be like the man of the house. He's always so concerned about his mother. Like when she was gonna go, he was like, "Move over, I'm driving." Like, and I even had the thought it was a station wagon, but I was like, "Oh, I miss cars where you could just like slide over. There was no center console." Like,
but what I don't think Abby's realizing in the situation is her kids are seeing this and seeing how they.
I thought about you, Aaron, actually, that whole scene, because like everybody was there when like there was like this weird like, gosh, Aunt Abby, you're neat, like crush on Aunt Abby kind of thing with Eric in the earlier seasons.
Funny.
I remember when Aaron used to be like weirded out by like this like crush Eric had on Abby.
Well, it was. I forgot about that.
This is also when Jim Westmont comes out to the ranch too, and he asks Abby how's she doing on her progress on marrying Gary, and she's like, "Don't worry, it'll happen." And then all of a sudden he comes up horseback riding, and he's like, "Hey, I think I'm ready to take care of my affairs and switch the power of attorney back." And Abby has to lie and go, "Well, that's great news, Gary." And then and then he also tells her that he accepted an invite to a Greg Sumner party because he likes where Greg stands on the issues. And Abby's a little bit nervous about that because she's unsure about Greg after their first meeting.
See, I'm not sure about Greg. There's something about him. Just like you have shady dealings going on somewhere. I just feel it. I feel it.
So Abby is less concerned about the power of attorney. She's like, that was inevitable. She's like, fuck. I already tried to offer this guy money in the name of Ewing Oil. Like he's gonna recognize me and be like, your wife already tried to give me like money. And he's like, what do you mean? So she's like freaking out about that. She's like, I don't care about that.
Gary's like, what are you doing? Talking to JR and what's going on?
Yeah.
Well, and that's that's one of we haven't got to that part yet. I'll just wait.
So Olivia and Gary have like a one-on-one talk. And this is something that I really love. This is something that happens throughout the series, and I've always really enjoyed the Gary Olivia dynamic.
Being that father figure for her, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's basically what he would have been to Lucy had he been given the chance. But I don't know. There's something about the whole dynamic of you're not my blood child, but I'm here for you, and I care about you the same as if you were. That's really touching to me.
Right.
Like I'm involved with your mother, and even though we fight, like I still care about you. And are you okay? Like what's going on?
And where's Brian at?
I don't care about Brian.
I guess nobody does. He's
I
never.
was gonna say no one cares about Brian.
Brian's fine. He's like playing his trumpet somewhere. I don't know.
That's why me and my friend joked that he drowned somewhere and nobody cares.
While they're having that talk, Abby walks upon it and is like overhearing it and just kind of standing back and listening.
Mhm.
And Olivia's starting to like put together like how her mother operates.
Right.
And I also must note that Olivia looks like she had a growth spurt over the summer because I feel like she's maturing like visually.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you look like
That
a little
I
girl
feel
now.
the same way about Michael. Michael's voice is starting to change, and he's getting he's almost max height. It seems. I'm just like, man, these kids are having growth spurts real fast.
Yeah, they do. I like that Gary and Laura moment too. And they were riding their horses. She asked why Abby's in control of his stuff still, which led to that.
See, that's what I like about Laura. She's not afraid to ask the
Yeah,
question on everyone's mind.
he's up
Yeah.
front.
I like that Laura's still in real estate.
Hmm
That's
Yeah.
just the thing I like.
Well, she's got to make money because her husband ditched her. So she's like, okay, Daniel folded. What am I going to do for
Because he
income?
married, he murdered CJ and left.
Right.
I have Valine looks gorgeous in that red dress at the campaign party.
Okay.
I was just like, ooh,
I
hair
don't think
looks so
this is the
good.
episode.
Sexy in the red dress.
She had another dress. She looked really the black polka dot one. It's in a later. I think it's episode 7. She looked good in that one too.
This is a great hair season for Valine.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's
Hair.
interesting because Valine is the last of the female cast to kind of give into the 80s hairstyles.
They've been calling her
Well, she
Valine
does.
more. Have you noticed that? Like
They've been calling her Valine.
more
Instead
instead
of
of Val.
Yeah.
I feel like
Well,
I've
I was
noticed
thinking-
that.
I literally had the thought. I was like, ooh, Abby was right. You know, success does suit her. I'm like, all of a sudden she has like fashion style, like
Right.
a style, like she's looking good.
She's very the confidence is showing off.
Mm-hmm. At the party, Ben and Gary meet, and it's like kind of like this awkward, like I was like, oh, like in between them, like this is interesting. And then, this is Mac's husband. Like,
It is awkward.
It's like, oh, this must have been how you felt at the airport.
right. I have Janet Baines takes herself off the case. This is the last episode that we see Janet, and this is when I was like, oh, they could have done more with her.
She's conflicted about her feelings for Mac too, that they never really talked too much about because those two obviously had a past relationship, but she basically is saying she's got to leave town.
They knew.
Yeah,
They
says
knew they
that-
couldn't do that. If they try to hurt Mac and
The
Karen,
audience would just
they would
their
have.
lid.
Yeah.
She said something like, "When I care about somebody, I always care about them. Like I don't just like turn it off or something."
Yeah, like he
And-
turns off his emotions.
Yeah.
And then she leaves and never is heard of again.
When they had their like final like few seconds together, I thought she was gonna kiss him on the lips.
Mhm.
The way it was
Mhm.
angled and the way she went in, but she kissed him on the cheek, and I was like, "All right, good girl."
She respected him. Yeah, she respected their
Yeah.
marriage. I like that too.
Yeah. I wrote at the campaign party that Karen contemplates throwing a pie in Abby's face.
Yes.
And then it's like, never mind.
I thought she was really going to do it, and I'm like, John, watch, because I felt like it was really about to happen.
Uh-huh.
And then I was so let down. I was like, oh, never mind, sorry.
I was waiting for something, even if it was just like she took a handful of the pie and put it in her face. I was waiting for something, and then she was
She
like,
took the
never
high
mind.
road, unfortunately.
Because Abby was gloating and being all like, Abby, and
This is the one
It was
Lily
fun.
Mae was hanging at the station all day, right? She was just
Yeah.
up everybody's butt.
I feel like
Want
Lily
to
Mae
try
was
and
like
talk
hanging out
some
the station
sense
for
into
5
Chip.
episodes.
Right.
She kept wanting to try and
Yeah.
talk some sense into Chip. But then this is also the one where when Karen
Chip
comes
is released from
home,
jail. Oh, Karen comes home.
and she
Yeah.
sees Laura and Lily Mae and she yells at both of them again about Chip. And she's like, drop the thing about Richard. And Chip's a bad guy because Lily Mae's trying to
Yes.
maybe somewhat redeem him. And that's when Laura finally lets go of that Richard did it thing
Yeah,
and
yeah.
realized he didn't
I can't
do it.
remember how that scene. I mentally took note of it, but I can't remember exactly what she said.
But she
But she
was pretty
said,
cool.
"You sound like fools even more than you're acting now."
Oh, yeah.
So something like that.
Yep.
And I was just like, "Ooh, she read them for filth." I was like, "Yes."
You did.
Was good. It was good.
So Chip is released from jail, and
Yep.
Lily Mae and Karen go down to the
Station.
police
Hang on.
station.
In Laura's defense, though, she's not really been involved with Chip as much.
Okay, you can't just jump to Laura's defense when she's wrong. Okay,
I can't. I will go down swinging for her.
I understand that you love Laura. I have a newfound love for Laura also, but when she's wrong, she's wrong.
I'm just saying she didn't know Chip that well, so she couldn't know how sneaky he was. So I would probably say it was Richard too. Just saying. Someone's gotta be Team Laura all the way. Through and through.
And my last line is Lily Mae runs him down with the car. And I didn't remember Karen being in the car. I thought she had gotten out. I was like, oh, Karen was in the car.
I feel like an awful human being, but I was like, no, what? It's fictional. It's okay. I was like, push that pedal, Lily Mae. Push it.
Aaron, did you feel like it was? Did you kind of see it coming? Did you feel like?
I feel like yeah.
I mean, they set the music up and everything for that.
Because I also kind of thought there's no way that's how they would let that, because Chip and Diana was going to leave town as soon as he got released.
Right.
That would have stopped that storyline from going, like that was the next logical move for that storyline to continue up.
See, I must just be a glutton for punishment, because even if I see it coming and I'm like, oh, this is going to happen, when it actually happens, I'm like, like a Who's the Daddy storyline, I'm like, even though I know it's coming.
I must go back. This was the Laura Black Suspenders outfit in episode. I have marks here.
She had this one outfit, I think it was stripes, black and white, gorgeous.
In this episode? Or
no, somewhere in 1 through 7. I can't remember where.
The only other fashion I clocked was the outfit Karen was wearing when she was in the car, because she's wearing it, in the next episode. That the neck, it's like
all the way up.
Very broad shoulders, and it's all the way up the neck.
Yeah, that's a weird move.
Gary was not in his boom booms, but he was shirtless by the pool, getting a tan. So kind of boom booms.
I don't get your obsession with how he, his.
I love his body.
Burns.
He has a good bod.
He has a good body. Stop! I'm distracted. I'm like, oh, Gary's body.
Gary. Oh, Gary.
And then he was wearing chaps over his jeans when he was riding horses. I noticed. I was like, oh, Gary's wearing chaps.
The cowboy in him.
That was the only fashion I was clocking.
What would you rate it?
I would give it a 9.
I was gonna say I'll give it 9. Just for part of the satisfaction of her running Chip down.
Yeah, that was. I feel like it really spearheaded us into a new direction.
No, wait,
I give it 9 gas pedals.
You didn't approve of Diana's slap, but you approve of him being hit by a car.
It doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense. It's just how it is.
I'll give it a 9 as well.
I'll say 9.
Also, Eric didn't murder someone. Chip did. And Chip killed my Gucci.
Oh, that's
Bam.
Yeah.
There you go.
True.
Now we understand.
Now we get it.
Case made. So I said 9 as well. So boom.
Oh, okay. Are we all on board with the 9s?
Yeah.
Wait, when did you give it, Art? Oh,
I gave
it a 9.
That's our first.
I gave it 9 gas pedals.
That's our first 9 all around.
That's right.
Episode 6 is called "And Never Brought to Mind." My first note is the payphone. And I saw the little like bell sign, and I was like, "Oh, a Bell Atlantic payphone." And I was like, "I hate that I'm old enough to know that."
It's true.
I put Laura informs Abby she owns a piece of property with Karen left by her uncle. And that she could try and buy Karen out.
Right.
I had Gary's divorce.
No, I was going to say someone understands. Oh, you can't read it, but it says, although I understand why it was Lily Mae who ran him over, I almost wanted Laura to do it for CG. See, I support that decision.
Whoa, there you go.
They can read, guys. If you go to the side, there's like a 4 dots and like a quotation thing. If you hit the quotation, you can see the chat.
Yeah.
Oh.
Um,
I see what you're talking about, Tommy. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay.
So this is when the lawyer, Jim, again, henchman Jim, says to Abby, you know, if you don't marry Gary, his new inheritance, it's his community property. And then if you get married and divorced later, it all stays with him. So he's just definitely reminding her of the timeline and what's at risk here.
Yeah.
There's that term, community property, that they throw around a lot.
Yep.
Well, it is California.
I have Gary's divorce is final, and Abby suggests marriage right away.
Yep.
Gary is hesitant, and she offers to sign a prenuptial agreement because she knows, he doesn't know that she knows that she's gonna get this money. So she's like, "Oh yeah, anything you have now, not mine, but you
Right.
get that Ewing Oil money, that's mine."
Right.
I like how during this, Gary doesn't even think of his money. He don't even care. He's just like, whatever.
Yeah,
no, he's so
must be nice.
As long as he has his ranch, he don't give a crap.
I go into the dollar store and I have to think about my money.
Right?
Chip goes into surgery in this episode also.
Mm-hmm.
From Lily Mae running him over, so he has to go into surgery during all this.
Yep.
And Karen's in the interrogation room with Lily Mae.
Yep.
And she's like, trying to like speak for her because Lily Mae's kind of in shock still. And she's like, it was an accident. There was the car, like something happened. And
perfectly.
Lily Mae's like, no. Lily Mae's like, I stepped on the gas. I ran that bitch over.
Right.
And everyone's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah, even the detective's like, please, you have the right to remain silent.
Right.
Remain silent.
Yeah.
Remain silent.
Remain silent.
And she's all like, no, I did it. I'm like,
it had to be done.
Somebody had to do something.
Yeah, it had to be done.
She had a little bit to drink. I didn't know.
The lawyer wants her to plead not guilty, so he's got time to make a defense for her. And then he says, if Chip dies, it goes from attempted murder to murder one. So that kind of gives her pause a little bit there.
I wonder if they could use an eye for an eye as defense. No, I'm just kidding.
Gary runs right to the police department once he finds out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he wants to help people, bail her out, like get her a lawyer, like do whatever he has to do.
I mean, Ben's there too.
They've come such a long way from season 1 of wishing she would just leave their effing house to we gotta run to her. She needs our help.
Right.
I'd be like, ooh, she's in jail. Let's break the instrument she owns. Just tell her something happened.
Gary leaves eventually. Like him and Ben kind of have like this awkward interaction where they're not bad guys. They both realize that they're good guys. Also, they're both very slender, and I'm like, oh, Val has a type. But
Abby does too. Rich.
At this point, they're on good terms. They don't really have any ill feelings toward each other. Gary leaves. He says, I'm not going to wait around. Like, I'll come if they need me. Lily Mae goes home. And she sneaks off to the ranch because she wants to talk some sense into Diana.
I'm sorry. If I just ran over someone, I'd probably stay away from vehicles for a little while.
Right.
But she's trying to go talk some sense into Diana, and she ends up walking in on Gary and Abby doing it in their bed, and he's like, oh, you're upset, I'll take you home. And Abby's like, Gary, if you leave here, I'm going to be
I
gone.
won't be here when you come back. Yeah.
Hasn't she said that before?
Oh, but she delivers on this one.
Well, and it's a big statement to make considering what she's risking letting go. So,
Yes.
but she's
I know. I was like,
desperate.
girl,
Yeah, she's
better be
Gal
careful.
goes running to Karen and Max to like tell them that Lin May's gone, and like
Right?
Karen is just so her nerves are shot. She's emotionally and mentally just spent.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like, I can't. I don't have anything in me. Like I can't go looking for Lily May. Like
Right?
I'm just
A part of me just is like, hoping Karen to be like, "Thank you, Lily May. Thank you."
Right?
Mm-hmm.
What do I have?
Chip slides into a coma, and Karen goes and sits with Diana at the hospital. But again, Diana accuses Karen of running Chip over.
Yep.
And she says she won't trust her ever again.
And again, another reason, a notch on the hate meter. Like if my meter was or thermometer was one of those little like bank things where they add the red to then it finally explodes. Mine's already there for Diana. It's exploded.
So I have that. Diana accuses her of hitting Chip. She's like, "You were in the car."
Right.
And Karen's like, "What? No, like, what? I wasn't." Like, she doesn't flat out say I wasn't driving. I'm like, tell her you weren't driving, even though she won't listen to reason. But like, just tell her you weren't driving. So she thinks, like, well, Karen's like,
girl, I was in the passenger seat.
Right?
So
it didn't matter what Karen said. Diana just hates her at this point.
Right.
Karen could have been kidnapped in the back of the trunk, hands tied behind her back, mouth gagged. Diana would still say, "You ran over Chip.
You were in the trunk."
So when Karen comes home in the middle of the night, Mac says to her, "It's time to let Diana go." And Karen breaks down because she realizes she just can't get through to her anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, over at Val's house,
I have Gary and Val sleep together.
Okay, did they sleep together?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So knowing what I know, I was like, they slept together, but I was like, this is very unclear until
because Val had the glow the next day. She couldn't wait to run over. Yes. She wanted to tell Karen, but Karen couldn't cope. So she tells Mac everything, and Mac's like smiling at her, like, "Get it, girl."
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I questioned that.
No, it happened.
They kind of leave it. They kind of leave it where you really don't know.
Maybe it was just a little bumping and grinding.
Gary stayed the night, and they both know what that meant, and we all know what that meant.
Right.
Trust me.
So this is what I kind of took because I felt like it was unclear, but knowing what I know, I surmised that they slept together. I was like, oh, they're kissing, and then they're like really kissing. So I'm like, oh, they're adults. They had sex.
See, I just thought maybe if it would have panned to the fireplace or something.
If it was your ex and like, you're kissing and you've already had sex in the past, why wouldn't you just have sex? Like,
listener Matt has said it correctly. Listener Matt has said it
because
correctly.
That kind of thing may have happened.
I have.
It does happen, and that's why I'm trying to. I can't figure out how to. Oh fuck!
You're like I may or may not be able to relate to the scene.
And
I can confirm nor deny.
I can confirm when your ex was someone who was addicted to something that could possibly happen.
So I have Abby makes good on her deal. And
I was really hoping like we'd get to see her go somewhere, open the suitcase, and be empty.
Well, it was funny, right? She's practically waiting outside the house for his car to pull up, and then she's picking up the bags.
So she could just walk out. Like the
timing was so.
She should have been like, "Sorry, these bags are so heavy."
She was waiting by the door to hear him pull up.
Right.
Checking the blinds. Where's that bastard at? I bet he's sleeping with Valine. After he just had sex with me.
And then
right. So I was like, wow, Gary's having a great night. He literally was like in the middle of sex when Lily May walked in, and then he got to go have sex again with like wow.
He got to finish.
Right, just fucking everybody.
he got to come and go.
Oh, bam, boom, boom.
Couple
For the
times.
viewers who are just listening, my cup says "come and go" because it's from the gas station. Come and go.
That's funny.
Matt said this is like Christmas Day for Val.
I saw that. I thought the same thing. It was like Christmas Day for Val, but then Lily Mae takes the air out of Val's tires after she goes and brags to Mac about what happened, and she's like, Lily Mae's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry I went over to Gary's. I'm so sorry I brought him into this house again, Val," and all this type of stuff. And Val's kind of like side-eyeing, like, "Well, it wasn't that bad. I kind of enjoyed last night." So
Right? Oh, don't worry about it. But also, like, I didn't write this down, but I took a mental note when Val was like, "Oh, I'm not hungry." Like, she was like, "I was about to fix you breakfast," and she's like, still pouring her like a bowl of like cereal.
right.
And she started cutting up the banana. I literally was like, "Oh, I used to put bananas in my cereal." Like,
Oh, see, I was thinking, how many times she gotta tell you she don't want no food? Stop cutting a banana. You're wasting it. Different worlds.
The psych doctor
So-
comes and talks to Lily Mae at the house too.
Yes.
yes. Oh, was that in this episode?
It was. Because that's actually when Val
was,
went next
okay.
door and told Mac about Gary staying because she got out of the house to Lily
I wasn't
Mae and
sure.
the
I
psychiatrist.
did put that note, and I'm like, I did put that note, but it was like later, and I was like, "Ooh, was it this episode or not?" I put Laura tries to make up with Karen, and it goes well at first. You know, she
Little
says she
bit.
was wrong about Richard, and
You know,
then she starts to bring up the property, and that Abby wants to buy her out, and Karen just like
turns on her again.
flips.
It
And
was
See,
a- it
here
was a
I
bad
was like,
time.
I get
I was
it.
like,
I get it.
Laura's
It
been a
wasn't
really good friend. Just apologized, and she's telling you she's willing to say we have to take Abby for more money.
Well, but Karen's
Right.
unfortunately
So she's like-
spiraling. That's
Yeah.
I know, but I'm on Laura's side.
I
all
love
the
the whole. I've been a pill, and she's like, "Thank you for saying that."
Yeah.
way.
And then she's willing. She's like, she wants to offer you 75. Like, but as your friend, I'm
Right.
willing. So she's willing to go as high as 150. And I'm like, yes.
See, and
But
I
I
was like,
get.
ooh.
I get
I was like,
both
what a
sides,
good
like, the whole-
friend.
I get that. Like, I was like, yes, Laura, good friend. But like, I also see where Karen's coming from. Like, it wasn't the right moment.
No.
I guess.
Like, that could have been a separate conversation.
I suppose, but
Um,
Laura's
Karen
not
flips
one
out.
not to be blunt.
And she's basically is like, I will never take anything from Abby Cunningham, which is always so weird to me to hear Abby Cunningham because I just associate her as Abby Cunningham Ewing. So I'm like,
right.
I forget that's your last name.
Well,
Yeah,
see,
right.
I'm not there. We haven't got to that part for me, so she's just Abby Cunningham.
It's funny in this episode too. Towards the end, we see Gary's really spending a lot of time with Laura, and they're horseback riding together. And he too is in the afterglow, and he's just talking positively and fondly about Val. And Laura's
Yeah.
kind of looking at him like, "Uh-oh, are these two on the cusp of maybe getting back together again?" And I don't think Laura feels too good about that because she doesn't like what Gary did to Val and slept with Abby, but B, she maybe thinks that Val's grown since then, so she's not too interested in seeing that happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And this is when Val is over at Karen and Max, and she's saying, something happened between her and Gary. And he says,
Mhm.
"How do you feel?" And he's like, "You know what? Well, also, I was distracted by the butcher block because I was like, oh my God, Greg has that same butcher block." But I was like, I liked when he was like, "You know what? That's between you and Gary. It doesn't matter." And then he walks up to her and he's like, "But how do you feel?" And she just looks at him like, "I'm a dirty girl." I'm like, "I'm a bad girl." I feel good. And they just like laugh.
Oh,
I love the relationship between Mac and Val. I love it.
right.
Yeah, me too.
I love that non-sexual, just like platonic male-female
Mhm.
relationship. 'Cause
Right.
we don't always see that. We don't always see that in television. It's
And
always
those two
this-
have it really well together. Like he's been there for a lot of times too, where she's had breaking points and stuff too. So, of course,
And it
then
all
they-
started with that one beach scene last season.
right, running on the beach in her sweater and her long dress.
And the episode basically ends with Abby assuring James that Gary will come crawling back to her in enough time for them to marry and for her to get her hands on the inheritance.
Because she's staying at her apartment at the office basically now, and he's like girl, time's ticking. And she's like, no, he'll come around. He'll come around. But in the back of her mind, she's like, but what if he doesn't?
And that's
And
how
then
it ends, because she's kind of like,
that one
Right.
scene with Laura and Abby too, when Laura found out that she was getting the blood test to be married before she was even supposed to get married, happened too.
Whoa, yes. And because unfortunately, Abby's receptionist isn't good at realizing if there's someone else in the room, I should probably be careful what I'm sharing. And she does it multiple times. And that time, you're right, Laura happens to be there. And Laura's like, oh, Abby, pretty confident in yourself, getting a blood test and finding out you could get married the same day.
We've
yeah,
come
Laura's the wrong person.
We've come so far from having, when it comes to getting married. No more blood test.
All right. Well, I would give the episode an 8. How would
Yeah.
you rate it?
I'd say 8.
I
We know I'm going to love the next one.
Did you say what, Eric? What did you say? I'm sorry.
Oh, 8. I'm 8.
All right, Tommy. Let's go for it. Last one. Episode 7.
What did you rate it, one?
Oh, I said 8 also. Yes.
Oh, so 8's across the board.
8's
Great.
across the board.
All right, so episode 7, last episode, Sacred Vows. So this is the all right. Before we get into the episode, this is where I kind of get annoyed by them showing the scenes from the episode before it airs, because I feel like they give away a lot of the big moments.
Right.
Like,
there was one
we shouldn't have
significant
showed the
one that they
wedding.
shouldn't have showed.
I
They shouldn't
agree.
have showed that.
They shouldn't
Like-
have showed the wedding. No.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the
But
TV
anyway.
guide, it would have said sacred vows. Someone's getting married.
But you never know.
So my first line I have is Greg is waiting around Abby's office to meet with Gary about another campaign donation. I put question mark because I wasn't sure if that's why he was there.
Right.
And then, Gary doesn't show up because he's distracted by the Willie Mae
Smitten.
Val situation.
Smitten with Val.
Mm-hmm. And he doesn't show up, so he kind of accuses Abby of bluffing and good at making promises but not delivering. And she assures him that she can deliver,
Right.
and he kisses her.
See, this is how I know he's not going to be a very trusting guy. The first time was when he pretended not to know Abby. I'm like, okay, he's willing to lie. And then he kissed Abby. So I'm like, okay, he's willing to cheat to get whatever he needs. Because
Mhm. My
He's
next
so
line
great.
is Gary work. My next line is Gary working on the ranch shirtless. Sorry, I got distracted.
I can't say anything about your obsession with Gary shirtless or in his boom booms because my obsession with hating Diana, you can fire back at me.
All's fair.
All right.
So we get it.
You guys have any other notes? Because I actually have minimal notes on this episode. I just have like big plot points.
I just got one big one.
And what's that?
So I have that in the beginning of the episode. It says Lisa Hartman as, and I'm like, what? Why didn't they just leave that as a surprise? I mean,
Oh, they gave her real name.
Put
I
that
didn't
in
even
until the
Yeah.
end credits on that one. I thought it was at the end credits.
Yeah.
no, it was in the beginning. That's why I took a note. I said, really? It says Lisa Hartman as Kathy Geary.
That's interesting that they even said the character's name because we don't know the character's name.
I might have to research that after we're off this podcast.
I did. I watched it on YouTube, on the YouTube
Okay.
ones just last night. And because I was surprised, I was like, why would they do that?
Maybe they redid it for syndication, and when they did it live, they didn't.
Maybe they shouldn't have done that at all.
Right.
But I know. And Gary and Val talk on
Matt
the
said
phone. They
that,
want to
Matt
meet
said
up.
it was all over the.
And
Matt
it
said
was.
all
You know
over
what?
the
I think like the gossip
media.
magazines then. The gossip
Oh,
magazines get a
this
hold of
is
it that summer, and it spoiled that summer.
This is why they probably did it, though, too. Fans were mad they killed her.
completely.
They wanted to know. They wanted to be like, look, you cried, you
The setup
bitch,
is
you
perfect.
moan.
The
Fat.
setup is perfect, but let's not jump to the end of the episode. Let's continue to talk about everything
Right.
leading up to.
But Gary and Val wanted to meet up,
Mhm.
and
She's
Laura-
she's
that's why
struggling
Laura-
with Lily Mae.
I love
she's trying to get her help, maybe put her in an institution.
when they told Lily Mae at the institution, so we hear you like to play music. I was like, no, she doesn't. No talent show for this.
Well, I'm not. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think her being in an institution kind of gives us a break from Lily Mae for a little bit.
True.
A little bit, very, very little bit.
Oh, one thing I hated about Diana on this episode. Yeah, I have to be specific now. This episode, when she snapped at that nurse,
Oh yeah,
I was like, you know what? Get her, nurse. Do whatever you got to do. Say, like, you know what? Visitation hour is over. Husband, wife, whatever. Bye.
I literally
She
have
help.
0 notes about Diana and Chip for this episode. I was
Well,
just
this
like,
just right here showed that it wasn't like, to me, this showed that it wasn't just her mother. She's like that too. She's
Right.
like that to
Mhm.
everyone.
Right.
She's a hateful person.
Well, is this the episode that Eric talks to her and says that their father would be ashamed
Yes.
with how
Yes.
she's acting?
Yeah.
Yes. Because he doesn't like how Diana's iced out their mother, and he kind of lets her have it that way, voice of reason.
And
This
in the
small-
end, she's kind of apologizing, saying that she has to do the right thing and
Right.
testify, pretty much.
Well,
Yeah.
because
About what
Chip's
he's
in a
done.
coma and they don't know when he's going to come out of it. So she's like, now she's feeling the burden of holding on to this information forever.
Yeah. I have Laura presses Gary on what's going on with him and Val.
Yeah.
Right.
She tells him Val can't be just friends with him.
Right.
That for Val, it's like him trying to have a glass of wine at dinner.
Right.
Mhm.
I liked how she used his language to speak to him.
And this,
Remember, you can't have a glass of wine. That's how Val can't have a glass of Gary.
and this happens after that conversation with Laura and Gary happened after Gary and Val made plans to meet for coffee.
Hmm.
Yes. So going off of that, he stands her up. He's outside and seeing her waiting for him, but he doesn't
Yep.
go in. He stands her up.
Yep. Poor Val.
Poor
Val.
Poor Val.
Mac
Mac and
accepts
Greg.
Greg.
Mac and Greg have a conversation a little bit because Mac sees the office that he'd be obtaining if he accepts Greg's appointment for him to be part of his campaign and be crime
Crime
commission.
Commission.
Yeah.
And that's when Max says to Greg that Karen's been a little bit off lately because of everything she's going through with Diana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because Greg's really interested. Greg's really interested in the Mac Karen combo because that looks good for his campaign because of Karen's supportiveness to the environment and women's rights and yada yada yada.
Mhm.
You know, it's kind of the ideal pillars to have on either side of him to help him get his Senate seat.
Right.
So is this the episode where Greg and Karen have the conversation where he asks her what she thinks about Abby? And she says, if you were in a desert and you came upon Abby in the desert, I keep going.
Right?
And he
Yes.
was just like, wow. He's like, tell me how you really feel.
Right?
I was like, yes, Laura, yes.
I mean,
Like, the only friend that Abby actually has is Diana. Which, what does
Yeah.
that
Right.
say?
That's because of her. It's her niece. Really, that's the only reason.
mhm.
And also, just to remind everybody, Diana has Abby's kidney. So
Oh, yeah.
just that also.
No, I'm not going to be mean. Not going to be mean.
So Mac accepts the offer for the crime commissioner.
Yes.
And Gary
Wait.
shows up. Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, I sense something bad's coming with that. Because if he's working on taking down crime, I mean, I feel like bad things are coming for him and the people he cares about. I don't know why. That's just the writer in me thinking that. I haven't read anything, but I don't.
Well, it is a soap opera, so ...
You might be right.
Your distrust of Greg might be some foreshadowing, Aaron. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, damn, because he's around till the end of the series.
Gary tells Abby that he wants to get married as soon as possible, much to her delight. They marry the next day.
Yeah, right.
I know. I love how Laura's a witness.
I put Laura's expression during the wedding, and she's just like,
I feel like in Laura's head, all the time she's saying, "Why am I friends with these fucks? Why am I friends with
you know
them?"
what? I'm really enjoying the Laura and Gary scenes.
Yeah,
Right.
I love
The
them.
platonic.
Yes,
I'm really
it's like
enjoying
the
the
Mac and Val
platonic
scenes.
Yep, Mac and
Yeah.
Val.
Well, they bonded over their really strong like for CG.
Well, yeah. Because prior to the season, yeah, they were friends, acquaintances, if you would, but they were never close. And so I'm really enjoying this dynamic between Gary.
Gary
and
was the
Laura.
one that went inside the house though when Richard had the gun and Richard was at the top of the stairs and he told Gary to get out. He was
That
trying to
is true.
save Laura.
Yes. Yeah, they like I said, they're friends, but
Yes.
we've never seen this like
Yeah.
one-on-one. And I like it. It's new, it's fresh.
This
Yeah,
was-
I love that too.
This was significant in this episode. This is the first time of many to come, as Tommy and Eric have probably seen, where we had the cut back and forth scene. So at the same time as Gary and Abby are exchanging vows, Val's having something pivotal and having to check her mom into the sanitarium and leave her, and Lily Mae is just giving her the biggest guilt trip.
That's how you know that even though I aesthetically like Gary and Abby, that they're not meant to be. Because they would never do that for a meant to be couple. They would never cut that wedding. They would just show you the wedding.
True.
They're meant to be in a way. In a way they are, because I feel like that's his. Abby is his drug or his alcohol in a way, because she's exciting and all that. Like that's what I get from that.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just realized, Eric, that it says Eric P. Valine. I didn't even look at that before.
Valley.
I feel Lily Mae is admitted to a facility. Val calls the ranch to speak to, and she speaks to Olivia and finds out about the wedding.
Right. Because she's like, "Hey, where's Gary?" And then Olivia obviously told her. We only saw and heard Val's reaction to what was told to her. But yeah, that kind of blew her away.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then this pivotal scene, we're in a hotel room, and Abby, I guess, is in the shower. Is that what's happening?
She was.
Yeah, she's in the
Yeah.
shower.
And
Room service comes.
Gary, room service comes, and there's this very hit or miss. Room service is bending down to get a tray. They're not seeing each other's faces. Gary goes to tip. He signs the bill, and he goes to tip the room service. He looks up, and it is Lisa Hartman, total blonde, looks like CG.
Oh, she looks so good with the blonde hair. It looked real good.
And he's dumbfounded. He's like not even trusting. He's like, "Am I drunk right now, or what happened?"
He takes a second, and then he goes to the door, and he looks down the hall as the elevator door is closing, and she's just chilling in the elevator. At least Hartman Black. And
are they still in Knox Landing?
I don't know.
I don't know where they went to vacation or honeymoon to.
Because I'm I'm like, okay, you have the same look as this new musician on the rise who was just murdered. No one mentions it to you.
Right.
That's why this was a good breaking point to leave you hanging, Aaron, because there's a lot of questions.
I know I didn't get much of Melissa Hartman.
No. Ted Shackelford's done quite a bit of press where he references this scene and how much he loves it and how he felt it was so well written and he enjoyed acting it. And it was a very good scene. Because he even goes out into the hallway and looks and sees the elevator close on her face one last time.
As she's making her way back. I used to be a musician. Now they got me in a maid's outfit.
Which is why I picked this episode to be the ending point, because I was like, I'm going to give him a little bit of Lisa Hartman, and then I'm going to cut him off.
Yeah, I didn't get much.
Right?
Well, you got her as CG in flashbacks, and then you got this.
I know, it was funny. We were in the car, like, John, Lisa Hartman comes back in the last episode, and she comes back, and her last name is Kathy Green. And I said, what did those initials spell? He said, KG. I was like, no, Kathy with a C.
I never got that either.
CG.
I never thought about that.
Funny.
I was like, you're ruining the moment, John.
Oh, and I also have that Val calls the ranch and finds out that Gary is married to
Oh,
Abby.
yeah.
And Tom, you mentioned that. This also, one other thing we didn't mention is Diana talks to Chip in the coma and says, you know, I hope you'll forgive me. And then she walks out into the hallway and sees the detective and says, I'm ready to talk.
There was one moment when she was standing next to the machines. I was just like, pull it.
Hope you forgive me.
Like, because she kind of glances at them. I'm just like, pull it. Come on, girl. Get the courage.
But it's not like he was on life support. He's just in a coma. So, I mean, I think even Paul, it's not like it was oxygen or something. I don't know if it was.
Okay, let me have my moment, Lynn.
Aaron just wants her in jail the rest of the series so he doesn't have to see her.
I just wanted Chip gone.
So, I would give this episode a 9.
Yeah, 9's fine.
I'd give it a 9. I'd give it a 9 as well.
Yeah, same. 9.
I love the ending.
Wow, we're really in sync, the four of us today.
Mhm.
There was only like a couple that we were like off by a 0.5, but like
You could take away the first minutes. I'm still going to give it a 9 because that last minute has at least a heart.
I just
You
can't
need
get
that last
over.
minute.
I just
Yeah,
can't get
I
over
kinda-
how much is happening in each episode, because I mean, I took more notes
Yeah,
and had to
me too.
pause to write them than I have, ever. It's
Yeah,
great.
I don't get
Oh, yeah.
bored.
For me, after the whole "It's Mrs. Tony Finese," it was just like it's on, like it just amped up, and like
Right.
because I don't know if you noticed, my rating has gone up since that moment.
True.
There
Like,
is
I'm
your
like, we got-
new Twitter handle, Tommy. Mrs.
What, Tony Finese?
Tommy Finese.
I love it. That's a good one.
Do it.
Well, we covered. There was a lot that obviously did happen because it took us 2 hours to cover those 7 episodes.
Yeah, right?
And I'll just make my I hate Diana Farragate. She should have pulled the plug.
Ooh. And
Combine
then she
it.
should have walked outside, and Lily Mae should have been driving a car again, and then boom, Diana goes bumping over them.
Oh my God, could you imagine the drama if she would have hit Chip and Diana and Karen would have been in that car? The
That
car
would've
that
been
hit her daughter.
Right.
Whoa, how that would have taken, that would have caused so much drama for Karen, Lily Mae, Karen and Val.
Mhm.
Oh, they should have went there.
There's still a lot of drama to come. Trust me. There's a lot.
So, any last comments on these episodes before we wrap it up?
Oh, yeah. No talk of Kenny and Ginger. They're just.
No, but
Um,
Richard did get mentioned a few times. Granted, it
Richard
wasn't
did.
an accusatory killing CG kind of way, but yeah, we got
They could have
mentioned.
just been like, oh, Kenny and Ginger moved or something.
Oh yeah,
They were never here.
They
it
did.
doesn't matter.
They said we're going to Nashville, and the Knox Landing theme played. That means
Oh,
bye.
I do want to mention. I noticed a lot of the background music was like season 1 and 2 background music, like that sad, somber music. Specifically, that I remember in the Lie episode where Laura was raped.
Oh yeah.
I was like, wow, this is season 1 music. I was like, I like how they're like tying it in and they're actually talking about season 1 stuff that happened. I was like, all right, I see what you're doing. You're
Right.
acknowledging everything. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
No?
Lots more excitement
Right.
to come.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Abbey Scale, brought to you by Queers and Soaps. As always, you can check us out on all the socials at Queers and Soaps. And until next time, have a great night, guys. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Thanks for having me, fellas.